One race that has yet to be decided is in the great state of Alaska. We have Alaska Republican Tea Party candidate Joe Miller battling sore loser Republican syndrome sufferer Lisa Murkowski. And now literally still counting the votes. Joe Miller is with us to get an update on all of this. Joe, welcome back to the program. And I know this probably is not an easy time in your life.
Well, Sean, thanks. Actually, there's less stress now than before, so we're not relaxing because clearly there's lots of work to be done. But we're just anxious to make sure the rule of law is followed in this, and we're cautiously optimistic that we'll come out on time.
Well, where are we now? Because I'm getting conflicting views on all of this. The I guess conventional wisdom was that all these write-in votes, or the vast majority of them, were going to be for Lisa Murkowski. But that would have, in other words, write-in votes, I think, were about 13,439 more than what you had. But there were over 100 people listed on this name sheet that they gave out, including yours.
Right. It's important to remember that nothing's been counted yet other than Scott McAdams and my votes. And, of course, there may be some of our votes that are in those write-ins, too. We've heard anecdotal reports that people actually wrote in Joe Miller on some of those. But, the key is a couple of things. You've got 37,000 absentee ballots that are still outstanding. None of them have been counted yet. A lot of those are military. We've historically run strong in the military community. We think that we're going to do very well on those 37,000. Historically, also, this is another important point. The last time a write-in campaign was waged in Alaska, Robin Taylor, 1998, almost 8% of the ballots were disqualified. And the reason I mentioned rule of law at the beginning is it looks like the Division of Elections wants to kind of play games with our statute. Our statute makes it clear that the name on the write-in has to match the candidate's statement of declaration for write-in candidacy, and yet we've heard that they now want to do something else. They want to apply some sort of subjective standard, and of course we disagree strongly with that.
Well, doesn't the law say there is absolutely no exceptions to the rule? Did I read that correctly?
That is right. That same statute says there are absolutely no exceptions, and yet the Division of Elections apparently wants to create some exceptions.
Well, I want to go through this. So what does that specifically mean? Does it mean that you have to spell Lisa Murkowski's name correctly for it to count, and then they're going to look at this and they're going to just like almost reminiscent of Florida in 2000, try and determine people's intent?
Well, that's our position is you got to spell it right, and that was also Murkowski's position throughout this entire general. I mean, she did commercial after commercial with spelling bees and with teaching people how to spell her name correctly. She even went to the extent of creating these little armbands and these pens and cards that even though the Division of Elections said you can't take those into the Division of Elections voting sites, she nonetheless still passed those out. So she understands what the law requires, but I guess the Division of Elections doesn't.
Yeah. Now, as I also understand it, my reading of what's going on in Alaska right now is that the, Division of Elections, they're doing some things that appear shady. They're changing dates. Apparently, they're not informing your campaign of events and changes. They're going back and forth as to what's actually going to count in terms of spelling and write-in validity. So they haven't even made a determination at this point what they're going to do and before they even count this?
We're very concerned about decisions from the top. Now, we had the utmost confidence in the people, the employees there, but, we had a decision earlier this week on Monday. The lieutenant governor said, we aren't counting write-in votes for Joe Miller. And yet there's a statute directly on point that says that a write-in vote for a candidate that's already on the ballot counts for that candidate. We had the date moved from November 18th to November 10th for the counting of these write-in ballots, for the review of these write-in ballots. Again, a change that makes it more difficult for us to have people on the ground to be part of that review. The other day, the validation of absentee ballots began. The handbook that the Division of Election puts out requires them to give us 24 hours notice. No notice was given to our team. So there are a number of things that are happening that cause us concern. That's one of the reasons why we're asking people to help us out at joemiller.us to contribute to our legal defense fund so that we can have plenty of people on the ground around to review the process and to make sure that the rule of law is upheld.
Now, what is the status? I know that I talked to Mark Levin, and I know he was dealing with this as it relates to the NRSC, and apparently up until late last week, they had not offered you any support, even though you were the Republican candidate. And what is the status of that now?
I think it was 3 or 4 days ago, they committed $20,000 to costs to assist us with travel and other expenses. We're very thankful for that. Obviously,
are they helping Murkowski?
Don't have any idea. No report on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you think $20,000 is, considering this is an important Senate seat, is enough money?
Well, we're thankful for all the help we can get, Sean.
I don't, probably with your team of lawyers, that may cover a day if you're lucky.
Try about probably a couple hours.
Well, I mean, that's pretty frightening. All right, now, also this weekend, I saw this on Fox News. There was a video of some electioneering going on. What was that all about?
Well, again, that's up on joemueller.us. It's really disturbing. It's on a federal installation in Fairbanks, Eielson Air Force Base, where a federal contractor was encouraging his employees to vote for Lisa Murkowski. And, we've seen that on even a wider scale in other areas, too. I mean, native regional corporations, these are federal contractors. They participate in these 8A contracts, and they've gone out there and basically told their members, hey, you got to vote for Murkowski. And they've also spent a lot of money on independent expenditures in this race doing the same thing. Again, federal dollars being poured into a federal race to influence the outcome of this U.S. Senate race. Very disturbing. But, there's a lot of corruption going on up here. And I've been here 16 years, and I really felt new state, really corruption probably doesn't have that big of a hold, but what we've been seeing over the last several weeks, what we're seeing now, really, really concerns us.
Yeah, I see that both sides are obviously getting lawyered up. I see Ben Ginsburg has been brought in by Murkowski. Now, I want to go back to this other issue. Election officials are now saying they're going to judge votes for Murkowski based on voter intent and will accept the minor misspellings of her name, which I think leaves a lot of gray area. Are you before the counting even begins, are you going to go challenge this in court?
We're going to make sure that there's a standard. We're going to make sure that even though the Division of Elections has not published such a standard, I mean, what is it? 2 letters, 3 letters, 4 letters? And at what point do you say, was this person just writing in the name in a silly way as a protest vote? You can't answer those questions because the voter's not there.
But wait a minute. But in previous write-in campaigns in Alaska, correct me if I'm wrong, many votes for write-in candidates have been discounted because of incorrect spelling or the voters didn't fill in the oval correctly.
Yes, 8% in the Robin Taylor race, almost 8%. It was actually 7.8. And that's a very high number, and it means the Division of Elections in 98 applied the standard strictly according to the rule of law. And that's what we expect now.
Yeah. So basically then, of how many thousand write-in votes are we talking about here? 13,000?
Actually, there's a total of almost 83,000.
Okay.
The gap between the write-ins and our votes are about 13.
Well, that's what the margin of difference is here. But right. So that's a pretty big percentage.
Right.
But during the 98 gubernatorial race, thousands of those write-ins for Robin Taylor were disqualified.
That is correct.
And they might not. And now they're saying they might not count your name if it was written in, even though you had apparently gotten on their list that was handed out to voters if they wanted to write in the name of a candidate.
Well, that's what he said on Monday. That's what the lieutenant governor said on Monday. But after we pointed out that he needed to review the statute that provides otherwise, he issued a press release a couple of days ago indicating that he wouldn't count them for us.
All right, so the two people that I do see that are helping you is, no surprise here, Senator Jim DeMint, and apparently John Cornyn, besides the $20,000, did he pen a fundraising email on your behalf?
He did, and we're very thankful for that as well.
Okay. Well, it's I don't even know what to think of this. But obviously Murkowski's taken it seriously if she brought in Ginsburg, who has advised Republicans in both the 2000 presidential recount in Florida and the 2008 Minnesota Senate recount. So
It certainly it brings into question the victory dance that she did there. Bringing in Ginsburg after the fact suggests that she's not so certain as to the ultimate result. And we're cautiously optimistic. We know the numbers are there. If the rule of law is applied, we're confident of a positive outcome.
All right, Joe Miller, we're going to continue to watch and follow this race very, very closely. And when do you think we'll have some resolution?
I think we're going to start getting some numbers this week. The absentee ballots, I believe, they're going to start that count this week, and that will give us more of an understanding as to where we're at.
All right, Joe Miller, that's